In this WrestleTalk news, Kenny Omega shoots on Will Ospreay, AEW Injuries force more changes to Forbidden Door, and Triple H is back with more power. So subscribe and enable notifications to always on for daily wrestling news videos.
Support WrestleTalk!
Now, we all like to celebrate our birthdays in different ways. Some of us like to go out on an absolute rager, some just like a quiet drink with a few close mates, and some people cry at their party because they want to. And others, you know, they like to do something special. I'm not really sure this is the butt stuff they had in mind though. Because a rogue billboard in Troy, Alabama has been erected by some digestive health specialist to celebrate WWE star AJ Styles turning 45 by proclaiming time for his colonoscopy. Not necessarily sure that's the way he wanted to see in his birthday, but it is always good to keep on top of your health. Speaking of Forbidden Doors, AEW is gearing up for their collaborative pay-per-view with NJPW this weekend, and one notable name who was big in Japan will unfortunately be absent due to injury, and that is Kenny Omega. Now, Omega did take time before the event though to speak to Fightful, and he had some interesting things to say about two of NJPW's top current talents, Jay White and Will Ospreay. He said that White had become their box office superstar, the guy you could base a pay-per-view off. And meanwhile, he said that Will Ospreay, despite being able to do anything in the ring, he called him a guy who is great at moves and has a list of 20 very forgettable 5-star matches. Ouch. Kenny Omega then did pull himself up before he got too carried away, saying that he was going a little too hard on Will. Will is great. And then he barreled on, damning Will with faint praise, saying, "Do I think that if you go back into the works of some of the legends, I'm even going to throw my name in the hat, even if you go back to when I was having 5-star matches and I was that sort of guy, I just think that the matches from back then were more memorable. And as hard as Will is working, he just isn't quite... Will is there. I'm digging myself into a hole here. Will is there and Will is great. Sounds like you really mean it, Kenny." He then called Jay White the star of the two. Come on, Kenny, man, come on. He then moved on to discussing his slew of injuries, saying that he could pinpoint the exact moment that he developed the vertigo he's been battling in recent years to a G1 semi-finals match against Okada, where Kazuchika hit a drop kick, flipped and landed knee first on Omega's head. He also said that he knew he had to take time off when making a video with a chiropractor and listing out his injuries and having to say which ones he thought would heal on their own. And when the list of ailments that wouldn't heal became insurmountable, the decision was actually made to finally take time off. I would have been taking time off the moment the vertigo happened. And no Kenny Omega interview would obviously be complete without talking video games in some capacity, because Kenny then talked up the upcoming AEW Fight Forever game, saying that the creative aspect of the game is almost complete, and Ukes has kicked their production into another level, and though there was a point that he thought that the game wouldn't come out at all, they are still targeting a release this year. So while the Forbidden Door has swung open, allowing talent to walk through for Dream Matchapalooza, unfortunately it seems the door has also hit plenty of people in the ass on the way in. And now they're injured. Because card subject to change is the word of the day here, as even more names have been pulled from the show due to injury. This time, one of the contenders for the match to crown the inaugural All-Atlantic champion. 4 men qualified for that bout: Malachi Black, Pac, Miro and Tomohiro Ishii, but AEW were forced to announce last night that Ishii has not been medically cleared to participate, so he'll be replaced by the person he beat in order to qualify, and that being NJPW's Clark Connors. Will a single match on this card go ahead as advertised? Only time will tell. There's a reason the door was forbidden, it's cursed. Now, AEW must have smashed some mirrors recently, as they are dealing with an absolute slew of injuries. You've got Kenny Omega, Darius Martin, CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, Red Velvet, The Bunny, Anthony Bowens and Buddy Matthews, and joining that motley crew, according to Tony Khan, is Kyle O'Reilly, which was announced during the AEW Unrestricted podcast, where Khan said, "That's a real-life, legitimate injury, and Kyle O'Reilly is out." Not sure how long, but it's a big loss, and we were not expecting that. He had just been on fire for the company lately, so it's a big deal to lose Kyle. Now, Kyle obviously took a baseball bat to the nutsack, so this is probably all kayfabe or just a way to write him off for a little while he deals with something else. Though Darby Allin has already teased that he doubts Kyle's claim that he's not medically cleared for Forbidden Door, so maybe he'll make an appearance there. Meanwhile, it's not only injury getting in the way of people appearing on Forbidden Door, but other doors, like the one between CMLL and NJPW. Dave Meltzer noted that Andrade and Rey Fenix aren't allowed to wrestle at Forbidden Door because CMLL is the exclusive provider of Mexican wrestlers to New Japan Pro Wrestling. That's why they're going to be having their match on this week's Rampage instead, as they cannot compete on the pay-per-view. Imagine being the exclusive provider of Mexican people. Wrestling's mad. Someone who is competing on the pay-per-view, but not necessarily in the match that you would have imagined, is Hangman Adam Page. Page is going to be taking on Jay White, Kazuchika Okada, and Adam Cole for the IWGP Heavyweight title. And funnily enough, wasn't in the tournament to crown the interim AEW World Champion, despite having been the very last person to hold the belt for CM Punk. But Page told Wrestling that he was totally cool with that decision, though. He said, "I had a match announced for that Dynamite, and then later I think they announced the Battle Royal. So I couldn't get my way into this Battle Royal, try as I might. I think it's typically been the story in AEW. I had my championship match, I had it the previous Sunday, and I lost, so I'm out of contention for a bit. That's fine. I'll do what it takes to get back there. If it wasn't for the next week, that's fine. It took me 3 years to get there. I'm not going to be put off too much waiting for an extra month or two if it takes it to work my way back to that chance." Let's pop on over to WWE now, where reportedly Triple H mysteriously announced that "I'm back, baby" to the Performance Center crew this week, seemingly signaling a return to his position at NXT. Now, Wrestling Observer's Dave Meltzer followed up by indicating that Triple H is back with more power in WWE. Now, this obviously comes at a time when Vince McMahon and John Laurinaitis are both under investigation, have stepped away from their corporate roles. Fresh off her own step away, Stephanie McMahon has had to step back into the role of acting CEO, and now Triple H has returned to full duties with more power. I wonder how. Now, what impact this actually has on the televised product remains to be seen, as thus far Vince is still retaining creative control and showing up on episodes of Raw and SmackDown as some sort of act of defiance. "You can't investigate me. I'm on telly." Now, WWE sadly can't escape the injury vortex either, though, as they've had a number of names having to take time off recently, and some who've been out for a good long while, like Bayley, who tore her ACL during training ages ago. Now, Bayley has been teasing a return on her social media of late and has long since passed the suspected return timeframe. But while celebrating her birthday yesterday, she suggested that she's still dealing with her injury. NXT star Cora Jade tweeted, "Ding dong, happy birthday, Bayley. Fight me when you're healed," to which Bayley responded, "Thanks, sugar mama. P.S. Please respect me. I am injured with a BAK." Also on the injured list is Rhea Ripley. Now, yesterday we told you that she'd revealed that she had injured her brain/teeth recently and is taking time out as precaution. Obviously, brain injury sounds a lot like a concussion, but that is a dirty word around WWE's parts. Now, Dave Meltzer said that Ripley is expected to return fairly soon and pointed out that WWE tells talent not to talk about concussions or COVID, and definitely don't mention the war. So, brain injury here could be a clever code that Rhea is using to signal that she's got a concussion. Finally, let's talk about Ric Flair's last match, the upcoming Jim Crockett Promotions show, which has moved to a much bigger venue due to demand and is booking some interesting matches aside from the Nature Boy versus his currently unnamed opponents. Now, Conrad Thompson announced via Twitter an interpromotional match as Impact World Champion Josh Alexander is set to take on MLW's Jacob Fatu with a title on the line. Also booked is the Motor City Machine Guns versus the team of Eddie Edwards and Davey Richards, their own Forbidden Door. But as I said earlier, the main match, Flair's last one, is still up in the air, because originally it was reported that Flair would be teaming with FTR against the Rock and Roll Express and another partner, speculated to be Ricky Steamboat, and it's now been reported though that Steamboat has decided not to take part in the match. Apparently, his asking price was extremely high and the two sides could not agree to terms. And now, FTR's involvement could also be at risk too, because a report from Fightful Select said that AEW CEO Tony Khan is yet to give clearance for Cash and Dax to wrestle Flair's last match, which is literally 7 days away at this point. Previously though, it has been suggested by Rick's former podcast co-host Mark Madden that Flair and Tony Khan had a bit of a falling out after the Plane Ride from Hell episode of Dark Side of the Ring aired, and Flair's controversial conduct on that flight was back in the headlines. Funnily enough, Flair is also said to have friction with AEW star Jay Lethal, who was initially training Rick for an in-ring return, though Flair said tension arose between the two when Lethal found out that he was not booked to participate on the show. Woo boy! What a mess Ric Flair makes wherever he goes. A mess that he makes. Turn the camera off. Hope you enjoyed the news. John Pollock of Post Wrestling is reporting that Triple H spoke as part of a meeting at the WWE Performance Center yesterday, specifically using the phrase, "I'm back." Now, obviously the phrase is open to interpretation, but people are speculating that it's his way of signaling a return to a prominent role in NXT.